After a close call, Stevie Ray Vaughan learned to play sober for the first time. And he didn't just survive, he thrived. But then, just when he was on top again, it took a chilling turn. There's a reason more than one person claimed Stevie Ray Vaughan reduced the stage to a pile of smoking cinders. His guitar didn't just sing, it blazed. Too bad the same heat that fueled his music also turned his personal life into a certified dumpster fire. To make matters worse, just when it seemed like he had tamed the flames, fate had one last cruel twist waiting for him. Stevie Ray Vaughan's father wasn't called Big Jim for nothing. This hard-drinking ex-Navy man was as tough as they came, and his youngest son couldn't have been more different. Despite being born 2 weeks late, little Stevie entered the world on October 3, 1954 in Dallas, Texas, weighing just 3.5 pounds. But the stark contrasts didn't stop there. For every ounce of Big Jim's brute strength and towering confidence, young Stevie was the exact opposite. Small, shy, and sensitive. It didn't help that Big Jim spent his days doing back-breaking work that put him in a foul mood by the time he got home to Martha and the 2 boys. And when it came to unwinding, let's just say Big Jim's methods were anything but gentle. Hobbies are great for stress relief, right? Sadly, Big Jim released the combined pressure of his job and what was likely leftover shell shock by knocking back drinks and unleashing a reign of terror on his family. Poor Stevie grew up in a constant state of fear, and it left scars that never fully healed. A wise man once called booze the cause of and solution to all of life's problems, and it was a lesson that Stevie learned way too early. At just 6 years old, he was already mixing drinks when his parents were out, because despite all the evidence otherwise, he thought it was cool. The neighborhood kids agreed. What started as a childhood thrill would end up nearly destroying him. Of course, life at the Vaughan household wasn't all bad. Music was the perfect mood lifter. Both Vaughan's parents had music in their DNA, and they soon realized their sons had inherited some uncanny abilities. Stevie, always eager to mimic his older brother Jimmy, quickly went from curious to completely hooked. By the time he was 7, he had his very own guitar, and he never let it go. Some nights, the boys' mother Martha would peek into their room to find them both asleep, cradling their guitars like a prized possession. The Vaughan brothers didn't just love music, they lived it. Too bad not everyone was on board. By the time Jimmy was 16, his rock and roll lifestyle caused so much tension at home that he packed his bags and left. That meant 13-year-old Stevie lost his favorite jamming partner, and he was miserable. Guitars around the house were a painful reminder of Jimmy, so to please his parents, Stevie decided to get a job. Sounds harmless enough, right? Stevie's parents couldn't be happier when their youngest put down his axe and landed a job at a local hamburger stand. However, one day, while hauling trash out back, Stevie Ray Vaughan got into an accident so horrific it's unforgettable. He lost his footing and fell about 10 feet, landing hard right on top of a massive barrel filled with scorching hot grease. Stevie Ray Vaughan could have lost his life in that fall, but his boss didn't care. Instead of checking that he was okay, she freaked out over the cracked grease lid. Luckily, he'd only cracked the lid and hadn't touched any of the dangerously hot grease inside. Furious, Vaughan didn't just walk away. He quit and stormed home. Once inside, he cranked up an Albert King record as loud as it would go and made a decision that would change everything. After his nasty fall, Vaughan swore he'd never waste another second on grunt work. He was going to play guitar like Albert King. Fast forward over 4 decades, and that promise paid off when self-described Stevie Ray Vaughan wannabe John Mayer inducted him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Mayer summed it up perfectly. Vaughan seamlessly melded the supernatural vibe of Jimi Hendrix and the intensity of Albert King and the sharpshooter precision of his older brother Jimmy. Stevie Ray Vaughan wasn't some kid with pipe dreams. He had the chops to back it up. When he auditioned for a band called Southern Distributor at just 14, they probably thought they'd stump him by asking for Jeff's Boogie, a lightning-fast showcase of Jeff Beck's guitar wizardry. Big mistake. Vaughan ripped through it, note for note, leaving their jaws on the floor. Word was starting to spread. This kid was something special. As talented as he was, Vaughan still had to pay his musical dues. He spent many nights tearing it up at the Cellar, as Lazy Dallas Club frequented by bikers, hippies, and misfits. It's anything goes ethos meant Vaughan could play whatever he wanted while his girlfriend Glenda danced suggestively beside him. It wasn't all fun and games, though. Sure, Stevie Ray Vaughan was earning money and having a blast, but this dive bar was actually dangerous. Case in point, some audience members chose not to boo, but instead to fire a few rounds at the stage when they didn't like what they heard. Vaughan, a true Texan, wasn't faced at all. His philosophy? You ducked and kept playing. Not exactly a normal life where a 16-year-old and something was about to give. Vaughan was not your typical high schooler. With his long hair, wild outfits, and a habit of nodding off in class thanks to the substances he picked up at the dive bar, he stood out. He'd also started lying to his parents about what he was up to, and the tension at home was reaching a breaking point. One day, while Stevie Ray Vaughan was relaxing in his room, his father stormed in and kicked him clear across the room. When a classmate noticed his bandaged ear and asked what happened, Vaughan's response was chilling. He said, "My dad boxed my ear. He told me he didn't want me to turn out like Jimmy, but even his father's brutality wasn't going to stop him. He knew that one day he'd show them all, and that day was coming very soon." Imagine picking up a guitar because of Albert King, and then a few years later playing right beside him. That was now Vaughan's reality. As he tore through the music scene in Austin, he didn't just cross paths with legends like Buddy Guy, Jimmy Rogers, and Lightning Hopkins. He played alongside them. By 1977, the Austin Sun crowned them the Band of the Year. But that was just the beginning. Someone far bigger was about to take notice. When it rains, it pours, and by 1978, Vaughan's life was moving at breakneck speed. His career kept getting hotter, and so did his personal life. Oh, and speaking of speed, his habits were spiraling out of control. According to one biography, if powdered stimulants were around, it was next to impossible to get Stevie to leave the room until nothing was left. His pursuit of pleasure would soon take him into dangerously rocky territory. Sure, Stevie Ray Vaughan was a bit of a quirky misfit, but you gotta admit, there's something irresistible about raw talent and unwavering ambition. Let's be clear, Vaughan definitely wasn't lacking in admirers. Unfortunately, the dark-haired pageant queen who really caught his eye, she should have been 100% off-limits. Enter Lenora Lenny Bailey. Wild, beautiful, and completely forbidden. She was already dating Dallas musician Diamond Joe Sidens. Vaughan gave Sidens guitar tips in exchange for party favors. But Vaughan took more than just the substances. He took Lenny. Vans was so bitter, he literally threw darts at a photo of Vaughan's face. And with all the romantic chaos that followed, it soon became clear maybe Vaughan didn't actually win this round. By mid-1978, Double Trouble was born, the blues rock powerhouse that would make Vaughan a legend. With Chris Layton on drums, Tommy Shannon on bass, and Vaughan, now going by his full name, Stevie Ray Vaughan, on guitar and vocals, the trio was tearing up Texas. She had the talent, the momentum, and their sights set on something bigger. Too Bad Fate was about to throw a nasty wrench in the works. Post-show jitters? Totally normal. A little pick-me-up after putting your all into a stellar show stage? Not unheard of. But doing it in front of an open window? Big mistake. Stevie Ray Vaughan was doing a little post-performance toot at a Houston show when the wrong person caught a glimpse, and things were about to take a disastrous turn. Better the odds. An off-duty cop just happened to be lingering outside of Vaughan's dressing room window, and got a front-row seat to the guitarist's recklessly snorting nose candy. Busted, the officer wasted no time slapping Vaughan with a possession charge. Talk about a buzzkill. To make matters worse, Vaughan's band opened for the Muddy Waters that night, and the blues legend had some chilling words about Vaughan's downward spiral. Want to hear the ultimate backhanded compliment? Stevie could perhaps be the greatest guitar player that ever lived, but he won't live to get 40 years old if he doesn't leave that white powder alone. Ouch! If that warning wasn't harsh enough, Vaughan's actual punishment was about to hit even harder. If you think about it, Stevie Ray Vaughan was pretty lucky. Despite getting busted red-handed, he walked away with just 2 years probation, a Texas travel ban, and a court order to go to rehab and steer clear of bad influences. But instead of cleaning up, Vaughan made a chilling decision. He skipped rehab entirely. The only real change? He got better at hiding his habits, starting with a strict no-maid service rule in every hotel he stayed in. Despite having god-tier guitar skills and a skyrocketing career, deep down, Vaughan was still that insecure kid looking for something to fill the void. Booze and substances weren't scratching that itch, so he got creative. He tried reaching out to an old flame and even randomly proposed to a pal during a late-night 7-Eleven run. Yikes! Then one night, the real answer came to him in a dream. Let's skip the drawn-out description of Vaughan's dream, because honestly, who has time for those? Vaughan dreamt that Howling Wolf called Lenora, the girl he took from Diamond Joe, up to the stage and sat her on his knee. When Vaughan woke up, he realized he wanted to marry her. Sweet, right? Well, as long as she didn't know that she hadn't exactly been the first choice on his list. Martha Stewart would have been horrified. The invitations went out last minute over the phone. The bride borrowed a blouse from the photographer. And the wedding rings? Just scraps of wire that had been found on the floor. And yet, in the middle of a gig at Austin's Rome Inn, Vaughan and Lenny sealed the deal, rock and roll style. Everything was really clicking for Vaughan. He nearly married and now booked to play at the Montreux Jazz Festival's Blues Night in 1982. It was the perfect way to catapult Double Trouble out of Texas and into the national scene, and boy, did it work. People magazine described how he reduced the stage to a pile of smoking cinders. Suddenly, everyone, including one rock superstar, wanted to know who this fiery guitarist was. After Montreux, Vaughan got the call of a lifetime. Even other than David Bowie had been so blown away by his performance that he asked Stevie Ray to play on his next album. The album, Let's Dance. It was definitely an unexpected combo, but somehow it worked. Vaughan shredded his way through 6 of the album's 8 tracks, and Let's Dance sold over 3 times as many copies as Bowie's previous release. Too bad Vaughan's magic touch was about to spark some serious trouble. Even though Vaughan's contribution to the chart-topping Let's Dance was major, the ever-humble guitarist brushed it off, saying, "He just sprayed Albert King all over the effort." Classic Stevie. Bowie wanted Vaughan to do the same on his world tour. Torn between chasing his dream and leaving his Double Trouble bandmates behind, Vaughan finally agreed. But just when things seemed perfect, disaster struck during rehearsals. What do you get when you mix a troubled yet talented Texan bluesman and his coke-addled wife with a British glam rock superhero and his jealous lead guitarist? A big old mess. Vaughan's wife, Lenny, a huge Bowie fan, insisted on hanging out at rehearsals, and Vaughan didn't mind, especially since she kept the nose candy flowing. But not everyone loved the arrangement. Bowie's lead guitarist, who was sober and fiercely protective of his spotlight, didn't like the new competition. Tensions rose fast. It didn't help that Vaughan's chemistry was a key part of Bowie's new sound. Eventually, the situation boiled over. Bowie laid down the law and banned Lenny from rehearsals. The stage was set for a showdown no one saw coming. Stevie Ray Vaughan had played a major role in David Bowie's comeback. But the respect? Nowhere to be found. Bowie made it clear who the real star was and laid down the law. Vaughan couldn't mention Double Trouble during press interviews, and to top it off, his paycheck barely matched that of a backup singer. Really? Vaughan had had enough. In a legendary movie, he quit the tour the day before it started. As his manager later put it, telling Bowie to get lost was the greatest factor for establishing Stevie Ray Vaughan as the working-class guitar hero. Quitting Bowie's tour was a power move. When the Let's Dance video dropped, Vaughan lost it. There was Bowie, casually miming his guitar parts, wearing white gloves. The disrespect was unreal. Vaughan was so furious, he couldn't touch a guitar for days. Talk about hitting a nerve. Bowie wasn't the only big star blown away by Vaughan and Double Trouble's fiery mantra performance. Jackson Browne was so impressed, he offered them the ultimate gift: free use of his recording studio. The band didn't waste a second and knocked out a full album in just 2 days. With the Bowie buzz still fresh, it didn't take long for a label to snap them up. Their debut album was about to drop, and it was a game-changer. Who needed David Bowie? Not Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. Their 1983 debut album, Texas Flood, struck gold and reignited mainstream interest in the blues. No small feat in an era dominated by synth pop. The critically acclaimed album kicked off with a song about Vaughan's wife and closed with another. Guess the relationship was still moving right along toward disaster. When Vaughan wanted to prove his love to Lenny, it wasn't with roses or jewelry. According to Lenny, he wouldn't give me money, but he would give me substances. Vaughan's manager, Chelsea Milliken, spilled the beans about a moment that should have been one of Vaughan's most memorable. Vaughan's first $5,000 check. Shortly after he deposited it, his wife Lenny cleared out the account. She was totally unreliable, Milliken said. His moments in the sun were always clouded by her actions. As any rock star's wife knows, long tours can lead to deep jealousy. In Vaughan's case, Lenny had good reason to question his fidelity, especially after he allegedly gave her an STI that he'd gotten from one of Hugh Hefner's bunnies. Oof. Nothing compared to the call Lenny made to Vaughan's hotel in Norway, though. We are not sure why Stevie Ray Vaughan would let a woman answer his hotel room phone, but one happened to do just that while Vaughan was touring Norway. Vaughan, who could hear yelling on the other end, grabbed the phone from his companion in time to hear a livid Lenny. And what she screamed was so disturbing, it's unforgettable. She told him, "I just want you to know I just flushed a baby down the toilet." No amount of substances could erase those words from Vaughan's mind, but it didn't stop him from trying. As one wise music philosopher said, the years start coming, and they don't stop coming. For Stevie Ray Vaughan, it wasn't just the years, it was the mind-altering substances, too. He was consuming a staggering quart, 0.95 liters, of Crowned Royal, and a quarter ounce of powdered substances every single day. And surprisingly, the impact was brutal, both on his health and his music. Touring is tough even for the healthiest rock stars, and Vaughan was far from that. In September 1986, his body finally gave out after a show in Germany. His skin turned clammy and gray, and he was notably sick of throwing up. One terrified bandmate later said, looking at Vaughan was like looking into the eyes of a deer on the side of the road. There was no life in them. Then Stevie Ray. Vaughan turned to his bandmates and weakly said, "I need help." They immediately knew this was another rough night. Within minutes, a bunch of men in white trench coats speaking German rushed into the room. It was terrifying, but it turned out to be the moment that finally pushed Vaughan towards sobriety. And this time, it stuck. For exclusive perks like early access to new videos, priority replies to your comments, and to have your say on future content, consider becoming a Factor Nape member. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details. But fate wasn't done with him yet. Vaughan couldn't remember the last time he'd played sober, and honestly, the thought terrified him. But while recording 1989's In Step, a nod to AA's 12th Step program, his confidence started creeping back, and for good reason. The album won Vaughan his first Grammy and became his biggest commercial success ever. His divorce from Lenny was official, and he had even found a new soulmate. Sounds like a happy ending, right? Well, during the tour supporting In Step, Vaughan wasn't just showcasing his legendary guitar skills. He was also opening up about his battle with addiction. But then, on August 26, 1990, things took a chilling turn. Vaughan told his bandmates about a nightmare he had the night before. He was a guest at his own funeral, surrounded by thousands of mourners. Talk about a bad omen. The day after his chilling nightmare, Vaughan hit a career high. And it was legendary. For the grand finale of a sold-out show in front of 40,000 fans, Vaughan joined an epic Guitar God jam session featuring none other than Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Buddy Guy, and his brother, Jimmy. But once in a lifetime, Encore took place at an outdoor venue just outside Milwaukee, the night that seemed like the peak of his career. In about an hour, it would all be over. The concert venue was picture perfect, but there was a catch. There was only one road in and out, and post-show traffic was a nightmare. For performers, helicopters were the only way to skip the chaos. So after their epic encore, Vaughan and the others boarded the 4 waiting choppers. There was some fog, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Luckily, the 3rd helicopter, the one carrying Stevie, never made it. It traveled less than a kilometer, 0.6 miles, before crashing into a ski slope, scattering bodies and debris across 60 meters. The crash was instantaneous, with no explosion or fire. Chillingly, the passengers and the other 3 helicopters didn't realize anything was wrong, until Stevie's chopper never arrived. Stevie Ray Vaughan had finally found the right path, but destiny had other plans. At just 35, his sudden loss felt unbearably unfair. His haunting dream of a crowded funeral became a reality, with over 1,500 attendees and 3,000 more gathered outside. The guest list read like music royalty. Eric Clapton, Stevie Wonder, Buddy Guy, ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, and Jackson Browne all came to say goodbye. After the shock wore off, Stevie's family was left with questions, and they wanted justice. His mother Martha and brother Jimmy sued the helicopter company, claiming that the pilot was unqualified and flying recklessly. The court battle dragged on for 5 years before the family finally settled for an undisclosed amount of money. For years, fans speculated how it all could have happened. It seemed like the pilot had driven the helicopter into the site of the slope on purpose, but when journalists and pilots attempted to recreate the conditions, it became clear. It had in fact been an accident. Stevie Ray Vaughan may have left the stage too soon, but his brother Jimmy made sure his memories stayed front and center. At Stevie's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015, Jimmy accepted the award on his behalf, thanking Stevie's millions of fans. That night, John Mayer summed it up perfectly. Although he didn't use a fire metaphor, if Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble took the stage to open for someone, they gave it back in shambles. Wherever Stevie is right now, he's probably still setting the place on fire.